Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. If you've ever gotten that terrifying, confusing phone call from a loved one locked up in Placer County, you already know exactly how high the stakes feel. Well, today, we're going to completely demystify this. We're looking at a very specific, high-stakes scenario: the crucial differences between robbery and grand theft charges in Auburn, California, and exactly how you navigate the bail process. We're going to cut through the legal jargon, look at the very real financial costs, and map out the exact steps to bring your loved one home. So let's jump right in.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover robbery versus grand theft. Then, determining the bail amount. Third, the bail bonds process. And finally, crucial next steps.
All right, Section 1, Robbery versus Grand Theft, understanding the legal distinction in California.
So, understanding the exact charge is absolutely crucial. It's really the first step for any family dealing with a Placer County jail arrest. Why? Because the distinction completely changes your legal journey. These two charges are treated totally differently in the California justice system. On one hand, we've got grand theft under Penal Code 487. That means taking property valued at $950 or more, but, and this is key, without force or fear. Think of, say, quietly swiping a really expensive, unattended bicycle. But then on the other hand, we have robbery under Penal Code 211. This means taking property directly from someone using force or fear. And robbery, it's always a felony. Taking something quietly versus taking it by force literally changes the entire legal trajectory and the severity of the consequences.
To really wrap our heads around this, we need to talk about a unique legal term used here in California, a wobbler. Grand theft is what they call a wobbler. That basically means the prosecutor can choose to file it as either a misdemeanor or a felony, depending on the specific details of the crime and the person's criminal history. But here's the catch: robbery is never a wobbler. Because of that critical force or fear element we just talked about, which elevates a simple theft into a robbery, it is automatically locked in as a serious felony charge, period. There is no such thing as misdemeanor robbery.
Moving right along to Section 2, determining the bail amount, the financial stakes in Placer County.
Now, you might be wondering, what does all this legal distinction actually mean for your wallet? Well, I want you to lock on to this single number, 10%. Before we even talk about massive bail amounts, remember this fact: California law mandates a strict, fixed 10% premium rate on all bail bonds. So, if bail is set at, say, $50,000, a family working with a bondsman only pays a fraction of that total amount, $5,000, to secure the release. A solid, reputable bondsman will explain this right up front. No hidden fees, no surprises, just a strict, state-mandated percentage.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the stark financial jump. Just look at the difference here. For misdemeanor grand theft, bail usually sits between $5,000 and $15,000, and it's actually set automatically by the county's bail schedule. But look what happens when you introduce that force or fear element. By the time you hit first-degree robbery, those bail amounts skyrocket, literally jumping anywhere from $100,000 to over $500,000. And notice that process difference too. For robbery and felony grand theft, you don't get automatic bail. You actually have to wait to see a judge at a superior court arraignment, which really slows down the whole release process.
So why exactly does first-degree robbery carry such massive, jaw-dropping bail figures? Well, California law severely punishes very specific scenarios. If a robbery happens inside an inhabited home, inside a transportation vehicle, or, and this is a really big one, against someone who literally just used an ATM, it automatically becomes first-degree robbery. The courts see these as highly vulnerable situations and penalize them heavily. Honestly, this level of financial and legal jeopardy is exactly why trying to navigate this without a professional bondsman is practically impossible.
And keep in mind, even within those ranges, judges have a lot of discretion. There are specific factors that'll push bail even higher in Auburn. First up is just the pure monetary value of the property involved. Second is the degree of force or fear used. Third is the defendant's prior criminal history. If someone already has a property crime conviction, well, a bad situation just got substantially more expensive. And lastly, weapons involvement. Displaying or using a weapon elevates the whole thing to armed robbery, and that brings incredibly steep bail hikes and much, much harsher consequences.
Okay, let's shift gears to Section 3, the bail bonds process: how a bail bondsman actually helps your family. If you're feeling totally overwhelmed by those numbers right now, just take a deep breath. Yes, you're dealing with a rigid system, but there is a predictable way out. Let's see how this builds. Step 1 is an immediate case review. The bondsman checks the jail's booking status to lock down exactly what the charges are. Step 2, monitoring the arraignment. Like we saw, for severe charges like robbery, you have to wait for a judge, so the bondsman tracks the schedule like a hawk. Step 3,
complete transparency on costs. They'll break down that 10% premium we talked about before you sign a single piece of paper. And finally, step 4, fast bail bond posting. The literal second the judge sets bail, the bondsman moves to post the bond directly with Placer County Jail to trigger the release. It's a highly precise, coordinated effort.
And here's a massive relief for stressed-out families. This whole complex process, it can be handled completely remotely, over the phone, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You do not need to drive out to Placer County Jail in the middle of the night. You don't even have to visit the bondsman's office. The whole shebang, from signing paperwork to making the payment, can be done wherever you happen to be. It's designed to bring immediate help to a family during what's usually the most stressful night of their lives.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, Crucial Next Steps, Responsibilities After Release.
You know, walking out of those jail doors is a huge moment of relief, but it's definitely not the end of the story. I want to leave you with this to really think about. What actually happens to that massive financial bond if a single court date is missed? Well, the threat of an immediate bench warrant and total bail forfeiture means this legal journey requires absolute precision. A great bondsman is going to be there to support you, but the ultimate responsibility and financial risk rests entirely on showing up. You absolutely must understand the exact conditions of release because honestly, the stakes couldn't be higher. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.